Thanks for joining us on the program. I'm Amarachi Ubani in Lagos, Nigeria. I begin with the protests in Cuba being replicated in Florida. First, thousands of Cubans were out on the streets of the capital, Havana, on Sunday, protesting against the government of Miguel Diaz-Canel, citing dictatorship on the island nation. Cubans have been angered by the collapse of the economy, as well as by reactions on civil liberties and authorities' handling of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The protesters came out in their thousands to the streets from Havana to Santiago in rarely seen protests expressing frustration over COVID pandemic restrictions, the pace of COVID vaccinations, and what they describe as the government's neglect. The president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, who also leads the Communist Party, blamed the United States for the unrest in a nationally televised speech on Sunday afternoon. He told the people, "We will not allow any counter-revolutionaries influenced by the government of the United States allowing themselves to be carried away by all these strategies of ideological subversion to provoke destabilization in our country." Special forces jeeps with machine guns mounted on the back were seen in Havana, and Diaz-Canel called on supporters to confront provocations. There were a few arrests and scuffles, but no major confrontations. There were also protests in Palma Soriano and Santiago de Cuba, where social media videos showed hundreds marching through the streets. The protests held beyond Cuba as well. Throughout parts of Florida and the United States, people rallied on Sunday in support of the demonstrations. In Tampa and in Orlando, protesters waved flags and signs calling for help for Cuba. And in Miami, hundreds of people rallied in solidarity with the protests going on in Cuba. Those in Miami packed an intersection in the city's Little Havana neighborhood. Cuba's economy is struggling. Tourism, one of the most important sectors, has been devastated by the restrictions on travel during the pandemic. The sugar harvest has been worse than expected, affected by a number of factors, including a lack of fuel and the breakdown of machinery, which made bringing in the harvest difficult, as well as natural factors such as humidity in the fields. Government reserves have been depleted, so it cannot buy imported goods to supplement shortages, as it will normally do. Queues for food have been growing. In addition, power shortages have led to blackouts for several hours a day.
And in Haiti, the police have announced they have in their custody one of the suspected masterminds in the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse. The man has been identified as 63-year-old Christian Emmanuel Sanon, a Haitian national who flew into the country on a private jet in early June with political motives. President Moïse was killed at his residence on July 7th by 28 foreign mercenaries, so says the police. His wife, Martine Moïse, was injured in the attack and is being treated in a hospital in Miami. She described her husband as being riddled with bullets the night of the assassination, an event she said happened so quickly the president barely said a word. According to Police Chief Leon Charles Sanon, the suspect said he had an initial plan to arrest President Moïse, but that the mission then changed. He did not elaborate further. Haiti authorities are now calling for U.S. and UN troops for the country to protect key infrastructure. U.S. officials have arrived, but only to help with investigation into the assassination. A military court in Jordan has found former royal court chief and relative of King Abdullah guilty of sedition. Bassem Awadallah and Sharif Hassan bin Zayed, who had denied the charge, was sentenced to 15 years in prison after trial, has shocked Jordanians and embarrassed the monarchy. They were detained in April and accused of conspiring with former Crown Prince Hamza to destabilize the nation. Prince Hamza, who's the king's half-brother, was spared a trial. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has condemned violent protests that erupted over the weekend as supporters of former President Jacob Zuma expressed their displeasure over his arrest. Today, the country's National Defense Force began deploying to assist law enforcement agencies in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal provinces to quell the unrest that has gripped both provinces in the last few days.
2 weeks ago, South Africa was returned to tougher lockdown restrictions level 4 as a COVID third wave gripped the country. President Cyril Ramaphosa promised a review in a fortnight, but with the record COVID numbers recorded in that period, he decided to leave things mostly the same for another 2 weeks.
This means that from now until the 25th of July, the following measures will remain in place. All social, political, religious, and other gatherings remain prohibited. A curfew remains in place from 9 p.m. until 4 a.m. The sale of alcohol remains prohibited. Schools will remain closed until the 26th of July.
With over 4 million people vaccinated and millions of vaccines expected, government is expanding the vaccine rollout to accommodate ages 35 to 49. However, a fire government now has to find a way to put out is the mass looting and arson being seen in KwaZulu-Natal province and several parts of Johannesburg in Gauteng.
These acts are endangering the lives of people and damaging our efforts to rebuild the economy. Our Constitution guarantees everyone's right to freely express themselves and to engage in peaceful protest. While there are those who may be hurt and angry at this moment, there can never be any justification whatsoever for anybody to embark on violent and destructive and disruptive actions that negatively affect the rights of others. It is a matter of concern to all South Africans that some of these acts of violence are based on ethnic mobilization. This must be condemned by all South Africans at all costs, as we are a nation committed to non-racialism and non-tribalism.
It all started as a threat of civil unrest to demand the release of former President Jacob Zuma from prison, where he is currently serving 15 months for contempt of court. 4 days later, 37 trucks carrying goods have been attacked, some of them looted. Shopping malls and street businesses have been vandalized and looted. Some journalists have even been attacked and robbed of equipment. And inciting rumors are making the rounds. So far, 6 people have been confirmed dead, and about 200 people have been arrested. Whether anyone will actually be brought to book remains to be seen. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
Let's head on to Europe, where, as can be expected, Italian football fans are on cloud 9 right now over last night's win of the Euro 2020 final in the match against England. The team were given a hero's welcome as they arrived back into Rome today. Crowds cheered as captain Giorgio Chiellini held up the trophy, won only once before by Italy in 1968. The star of what they're calling an Italian miracle is coach Roberto Mancini, transforming the national team from the shame of failing to qualifying for the last World Cup to a side unbeaten now in 34 games. He's brought youth and confidence to the Italian team and made Italians fall back in love with the Azzurri. A triumphant team landed at Rome's Fiumicini Airport earlier today. Crowds cheered as they disembarked. Chiellini himself, wearing a crown, held aloft the trophy, which he kept next to him on his bed overnight. He also met the President and Prime Minister today. Channel Television's Austin Okonakman is in London, which we understand has been rather quiet today, from last night actually, despite all the confidence deposed on the team yesterday that they would take home the trophy. Austin, have the English fans gotten over the loss yet?
Good to be on the wall today, Amarachi. It's going to be a difficult process to get over that loss, because the 55-year wait continue to win the European Championship. They were so close just before that final. Everywhere you go, the song of it's coming home, the enthusiasm, the passion. Football brought the country together again. I was telling my guys days before the final that if England should win this Euro Championship, the country will open up again, but it is what it is. I say it, whether people like it or not, football chose Italy because England played, what they could play. And I think it was a decent team that made it to the final, but it didn't just happen for them. Yesterday, the noise, the fun, the passion was crazy. Amarachi, I could feel it looking into the eyes of people. You walk through the bars, you won't be scared that, look, if England don't win, it will be dangerous to be fined outside. They lost.
I watched the match vicariously, I have to confess, because the tension was really high. It was palpable, especially here in the newsroom with everyone focused on the monitors around just watching the match, and so much hope was reposed on the team yesterday. It was almost certain, as you say, that England would go home with the cup. So what changed on the field apart from the equalizer from the Italian team?
I think it was a loss of concentration. They also got the goal too early. They lost control of the game, and the Italians took over. And when the Italians can pump those pressure they can go on to punish you, and then they got that equalizer. But not to take anything away from the English side, they were able to hold on and then push the game to penalties. But it is what it is. Penalties is a game of dice, Samarachi, and anybody can just turn around and win it, But it's just painful that they lost it at Wembley. It's painful that they lost it when they were within touching distance. The cup was right there. It was already home. It's just for them to take it, into their cabinets, So football can be funny. The Italians, let's not take anything away from their performance. They've been fantastic. Prior to this competition, Amarachi, they had a good run. This is the same Italian team that failed to qualify for the World Cup 3 years ago. They put themselves together, got the composure they needed. Roberto Mancini has done a great job with that team. They went about 34 games unbeaten, and then by the time they connected at the Euros, they were unbeatable. So shout out to the Italians, worthy champions. Amarachi, if any team makes it to the final, then they deserve to win, and Italy won.
Yeah, they do. And Roberto Mancini was the man of the match. So much a celebration for him yesterday. I'm sure he has a very bright future ahead of him. But what happens now to the English team?
So Gareth Southgate has been speaking. Up next is to ensure that he takes the team to the World Cup. But he says it feels like his stomach has been ripped off after yesterday's loss to Italy. So, as I said, it will be a slow healing process. They need to go back and understand what they want to do with this team. I still love this English team. I think they are very decent. I think they've got good prospects. Take a look at the guys that lost yesterday, the penalties. Bukayo Saka is 19, Jadon Sancho is 20, Marcus Rashford is 23. The future looks good. England made it to the semi-finals at the World Cup in Russia. They can hope to make it to the finals in Qatar 2022. It's football. They need to go back and look at those objectives and find ways that they can clean it up, It's going to be tough, Amarachi, because they really wanted this trophy and it just slipped them.
I know, and they had a lot of countries rooting for them too. Austin, thank you again. We rejoice with the Italian team, but also pray for the best, of course, for the English team. Thanks again for joining us on The World today.
Thank you so much, Amarachi. Thank you.
Checking in on the coronavirus pandemic, a group of scientists are warning the UK government that patent protections on COVID-19 vaccines are threatening the security of the country's vaccination program and could lead to further lockdowns. It comes as the UK Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, says the country looks forward to the time when all COVID-19 restrictions are lifted. However, tests need to be passed to proceed. First, be the success of the vaccination program. Here's the global update.
The UK's Health Secretary also confirmed the final stage roadmap on July 19, saying the government firmly believes this is the right time to get the nation closer to normal life. He says England will move to the next stage of the roadmap on the 19th of July. Neighboring France is expecting new measures to be announced by President Emmanuel Macron in a televised speech today. It comes amid growing debate in the country on whether inoculation should be mandatory for medical workers, with France health regulator advising for the jabs. Also on the table is a stricter implementation of health passes, which came into effect in early July as French people depart for their summer holidays. South Korea's government has carried out its strictest anti-coronavirus restrictions to date on the level 4 in the Seoul metropolitan area to curb the spread of virus amid the fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Under the restrictions, restaurants and other public places only allow gatherings of 2 persons after 6 p.m., with large-scale activities being banned. Public gatherings, service venues are all prohibited or restricted for business, and showers indoor sports venues are also prohibited. Finally, the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the United States surpassed 33.85 million as of Sunday. The country's death toll has also surpassed 607,000. The United States still leads the world in the numbers of both confirmed COVID-19 cases and deaths. The country has only administered at least 332 million shots to 55% of the population.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization committee says the human genome editing technologies to treat serious disease should be shared more generously to allow poorer nations to benefit from the highly dynamic scientific field. Established in late 2018 after a Chinese scientist said he had edited the genes of twin babies, the Committee of Gene Editing Experts was asked to make recommendations on national and international governance mechanisms for human genome editing. Underlining the WHO's existing stance, the report strongly opposed making modifications to the genetic code in humans that will be passed on to future generations, known as heritable germline genome editing.
WHO should work with others to encourage relevant patent holders to help ensure equitable access to human genome editing applications. Encourage industry to work with resource-constrained countries to build capacity to take advantage of human genome editing applications, and convene a meeting of relevant parties and international organizations to explore the potential for the adoption of appropriate ethical licensing requirements.
So I think you see a fair bit of enthusiasm for being able to move forward, but a number of caveats. One of the caveats you've already heard about from Anne, which is to ensure that the benefits of this research, or the potential benefits, are available to all, not just those in high-income countries.
And the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations says there is a dramatic worsening of world hunger. There was a dramatic worsening of world hunger in 2020, much of it likely related to the fallout of COVID-19. While the pandemic's impact has yet to be fully mapped, a multi-agency report estimated around a tenth of the global population, up to 811 million people, were undernourished last year. More than half of all undernourished people live in Asia, more than a third in Africa, and a smaller proportion in Latin America and the Caribbean. But the sharpest rise in hunger was in Africa, where the estimated prevalence of undernourishment at 21% of the population is more than double that of any other region.
The main finding of this year, Sophie, is that even before COVID-19 pandemic, the world was not already on track to end world hunger and malnutrition in all its forms by 2030. Conflict, climate change, economic downturns have also challenged efforts to achieve food, nutrition, and security. In terms of the figures, this year, in 2020, we found that 720 to 811 million people around the world face hunger in 2020. This number is approximately 118 million more people that were facing hunger in 2020 with respect to 2019. What this means is that 418 million people are more undernourished in Asia, and around 282 million people are more undernourished in Africa. And in Latin America, we also seen an increase to 9.1% of the population being undernourished today. When we look at the real reasons behind hunger, always conflict, climate extremes, and economic downturns and slowdowns are the major reasons behind the increase in the hunger and the nourishment that we are facing today. Not only that, we also see that all these drivers are exacerbated because of COVID-19. And what also we see today is that access to healthy diets is a huge challenge. That means that today we have around 3 billion people that won't have access to healthy diets, which is the diets we need to be able to improve nutrition and improve any form of malnutrition in the world.
Local residents in India's northern hilly state of Himachal Pradesh have been displaced after flash floods damaged their homes. Local watercourse Baksu Nag Nula turned into a raging torrent, damaging houses and other buildings in the area following heavy rainfall in the upper regions of the Himalayas. Himachal Pradesh State Chief Minister Jairam Thakur said there haven't been any deaths related to the local floods. One flood victim, Sunita Kumari, said she had lost everything she owned, including her house. Annual rainfall is essential in India as rain supports 2/3 of the 1.3 billion population living in rural areas who rely on farming. But excessive rainfalls cause problems like floods, landslides, and waterborne diseases. We end in safer waters. Divers in Dubai can explore an underwater sunken city in the world's deepest pool, which reaches depths of 60 meters at a facility called Deep Dive Dubai. It is awesome. Handout footage shows divers swimming around an underwater arcade, library, and an apartment. The facility says it was confirmed as the world's deepest pool by Guinness World Records and can hold the equivalent of 6 Olympic-sized swimming pools. It opened on Wednesday last week, currently operating on an invitation-only basis, with public bookings set to begin at the end of this month. As awesome as that sounds, it sounds really scary too. But thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.